IVM.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Musafir Stories, India's very own travel podcast, where each week we discuss the story of travelers in their own words and relive their experiences with you, our listeners. Hey guys, welcome to a brand new episode of the Musafir Stories. Hope you're all well and had a wonderful Diwali. On the podcast today, we have content creator and YouTuber Stuti Bhadauria, whose slow travel videos have made us fall in love with Goa all over again. So let's jump onto the episode and find out more. We'd love to welcome Stuti Bhadauria, a travel content creator and YouTuber who creates content under the handle nomadographer.com. Stuti, thank you so much for being a part of the Musafir Stories and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. Your podcast has been like a escape for me. Stuck in lockdown, I've been listening to all your podcasts for the last 3-4 months, and thanks for creating those first podcasts, and thanks for having me on the podcast.
No, thank you. The pleasure is totally ours, and we've been following your work for a while now, Stuti, and I'd always been meaning to have you, and now is the opportunity, and now is the time that we finally managed to have you. So really, really grateful to have you on the podcast, and thank you for agreeing to be on it. But the introduction I gave about you, Stuti, is really short and concise. So why don't you speak a little bit more about yourself and also the type of content you create?
So, like you said, I am a travel content creator. But before that, I was into the normal marketing job life. And the traveling part came quite late in my life after I started working. But there is something which I've always been passionate about, which is photography. So on and off for the last 10, 11 years, I've been trying to keep my interest in photography alive. And most of the photography work that I do is documentaries in nature. Basically, I try to capture the beauty of a place in its rawest form without adding any, extra effect to it, so that somebody who is watching it or looking at it, gets the true feel of that. So it basically started when after I did my MBA. I joined a travel startup rather than going into a corporate path. I joined a travel startup, and my most of my work was focused around roaming around the streets of Old Delhi and looking for interesting, stories, talking to people, looking for lesser known heritage, that type of thing. So it kind of helped me, keep that interest in photography alive, and also made me, more interested in travel and made me more passionate about travel. And
Sure.
after that, I think around 2015, I moved to Goa from Delhi. And because of that habit of, just roaming around and capturing, different minute details of the places, that kind of evolved my travel style as a whole. So it helped me in exploring Goa in a better way, and not in the regular sense that you just go to a beach and chill and then come back.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I have to agree with you. And that's also what kind of really, really caught my attention. That rawness in a lot of the video content that you produce as well. It's almost that first person experience, right? You don't really add a lot of voiceover or a lot of heavy music and effects and all of that. It's as
Yeah.
if I am walking through the streets of Goa. It really feels like that, right? Like a virtual experience or like a vicarious experience, or lack of a better word, that we are actually going on that walk with you and with no distractions as such. So really, really enjoy that content, and we'll make sure we link both your website as well as your YouTube channel in the show notes section of the episode. But Stuti, before we start to dive deeper into the conversation and talk a little bit more, why don't you tell us where you're taking us and the listeners to today?
So today I will be taking you all to three of the most prominent and well-known islands of Goa. first of all, we'll go to Chorao, then we'll
Right.
go to Divar Island, and then Sant Estevam. And again, Goa beaches have their own charm. I'm not saying that Goa beaches are bad.
Hmm.
Beaches are good, but these islands, if you want to experience the true essence of laid back, the Susegard life of Goa, then
Hmm.
these are the islands where you need to go to. And again, I don't think that you can experience something like that on a beach or a beach hut. So
Yeah.
I'll try to transport you to those streets and those paddy fields and explore these villages.
Wonderful. Yeah, Goa has many different facets. Obviously, the beach and the party goers and the music and the carnival type of Goa is what we see the most. But really looking forward to seeing the raw and the rustic Goa as well, getting in the alleys of these smaller villages on these islands. So yeah, let's jump into this conversation. Before we start speaking a little bit more about them, just to set up the geographical context as well. Could you give us some reference as to where these islands are situated? Say, how far away from a popular place like Panjim in Goa?
Okay, so all three of these are actually very close to Panjim. So basically, if you're coming from Panjim side, these places come one after the other. First, you will encounter Chorao, then you will come towards Divar, and then Santastavam. And all of these are quite close to Panjim. So Chorao is like 5 kilometers away. Divar
Okay.
is approximately 7-8 kilometers. Sant Estevam is a little far away, but it's not that far. It takes around 20-25 minutes of drive to reach there,
Okay.
and it's very close to Old Goa monuments. So if you are visiting the Old Goa monuments of Bomb Jesus and
Mm-hmm.
the churches and everything, if you have extra time, you can go to Sant Estevam as well. It's closest to Old Goa basically. So
Okay.
yeah, and all three of these are located alongside the Mandovi River, and all three of them can be accessed by a ferry.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you that actually. So it looks like getting there is also pretty easy, and ferries are obviously, given that there are islands, you have to use ferries to get there. And within the islands as well, I guess the best mode of getting around would be to have your own transportation, like ideally a scooter or a bike. Yeah, and then you can go exploring around the islands. Correct?
Yeah. So if you have your own bike or a scooty, it's actually better because you can hop on the ferry and then just you have the flexibility of going in whichever street you want to. Even if you
Yeah.
have a car, if you have your own car, if you're living in Goa, or if you have a rental car also, you can get on the ferry. They charge like 10-15 rupees
Yeah.
for a car. So even if you have a car, it's quite convenient. So if you are a group of people and you don't want to like get on a scooty, and if the heat of Goa gets too much for you, then you can easily get in a car,
Okay.
hop on the ferry, and just roam around. It's not just Activa or a scooty. Car option is also there.
Okay, that's brilliant. And also, like you were mentioning, sometimes it can get hot. So,
Yeah.
in terms of when would be an ideal time to visit these islands, what would you suggest? I know, I mean, most of the year, except for like peak summer months, should be okay. But any ideal time you would suggest?
My favorite time of the year is monsoon, and during winters, although Goa don't have any winter season per se,
Right.
but around October till February is the perfect time, especially for these islands, for a reason, because again it's quite vast, and if you are on a scooty it might get very hot, and also because there are a lot of natural habitats and a lot of birding areas. So
Sure.
it's better if you come during October till Feb, because that is when you get to see, if somebody is into bird watching and all, that is when you get to see most of the action. And my favorite time is obviously monsoon, because it's the greenest, it's the
Yeah.
most prettiest
Yeah.
time of the year, and just roaming around when it's raining with our raincoats on or without the raincoats is just a totally different feel altogether. It's so green all around. I've like it's a paradise. It's a green paradise, to be honest. But the thing is, again, for the last 2 3 years there have been issues of flooding. So be very careful if
Right.
you're planning a trip. Make sure that the weather is clear and you don't get stuck somewhere. And because of various reasons and all lots of
Yep.
constructions is going on, so flooding has become quite a major issue for the last 2 3 years.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for calling that out as well. And even in terms of stay, right? I know, like a lot of these islands are pretty much sort of smaller villages.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of living, you would you think staying in one of the closer places like Panji and then making day trips to these islands would be ideal, or are there accommodations available on the islands as well?
There are homestays available. I don't know the specific details of it because I used to stay there, so I never
Right.
really, stayed at a place. But in Divar, I know there are quite a couple of homestays. Chorao, there are some resorts, but they are of a particular use, like they are yoga institutes and those kind of retreats. But
Okay.
I am pretty sure if you look for it, there are a lot of homestays which you can find, and even if you are staying in Panjim, it's quite easy. Like I told you, it's quite
Yeah.
easy to get around.
Okay, sounds well. Yeah, I mean, Goa, we don't have to say in terms of the tourist infrastructure, it is pretty much top notch. Like you have all
Yes,
sorts of accommodations and places options available. So it will, or it should not be a problem, right? It's
right,
just
right.
that we wanted to call it out. Wonderful. So thank you for setting up the context really well now, both from a geographical perspective as well as getting there, staying there, etc. Now let's jump into the specifics about what one can spend time doing when visiting
Mhm.
these islands. And let's start off by Chorao and take us with you and call us out some of the things one can indulge in while going to Chorao and some of the things, points of interest, etc. one can visit.
Okay, so before we get on to the Chorao ferry, the
Mm-hmm.
road that we take is in itself a very beautiful route, and
Okay.
it's called Ponte de Linares. It was
Mm-hmm.
built in around 1600s, 1630s, I guess. And
Okay.
back in those days, because I think there was a plague in old Goa, and then people were shifting
Sure.
to Panjim. So that causeway was made, which connected Panjim to old Goa, and that road goes through all those ferry points, which we'll be, covering in this talk. So that Ponte de Linares route in itself is very beautiful, and when it was constructed, it was, I think, the largest causeway or the longest causeway of those times. So it's kind of a architectural marvel. Although while you're driving on it, it might not seem like that. But that in itself, if you're driving on that route, please, uh, stop for a minute and try to admire the beauty of that whole route. And then the first stop that we get to is the again Chorao ferry. Uh, Chorao is actually the largest of the the islands of Goa.
Right.
So and again it has a lot of mangrove vegetation all around, so it is the main attraction of that place. So once you get on the ferry, it's a nice 10-15 minutes long ride from Ribanda to Chorao. And that whole ferry ride in itself is very peaceful. You see the other side of the Ponta de Linares, and then as you get closer to the island, you can start seeing the mangroves and birds just chilling on the trees. So it's the whole ride in itself, not just the island. The whole ride in itself is quite enjoyable, and also because it's free. And if you don't want to do a cruise or something, like if you are a budget traveler and you don't want to get on a expensive cruise, just get on these ferries and just explore the rivers of Goa.
Yeah,
That's the
that's
best
wonderful.
way.
Yeah, I was also quite overjoyed by looking at that. Apparently, so if you're just walking into it, like if you don't have a vehicle, you don't have to pay anything, basically, right? That's what you're saying?
Yes,
Yeah, if you have to, yeah, you have to pay for the vehicle, basically. But
that's it.
if you're just walking into it, you don't really have to pay anything, which is great for
Yeah.
Yeah, for some of us who might just have extra time on hand, we could just take the ferry ride across, right, and walk around a little bit. Wonderful, and yeah, like you rightly called out, it's one of the biggest islands. It is actually the biggest of the islands in Goa, and I believe there's 17 islands. A lot of them are, I mean, relatively smaller sizes, but of those, this is the biggest. And the prominent feature is also the mangroves and the natural habitat of the region, right? I'm sure you'll call
Right.
out a few of those, but
Yes.
that's also very, very vivid and visible as you approach the island, and also a very important part of the ecosystem there, right? These mangroves, in terms of maintaining the habitat of the flora and the fauna around the island.
Yeah, so like mangroves, again, it's a very fragile ecosystem. But because of these mangroves, we now have one of the biggest or one of the most prominent bird sanctuaries in Goa,
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Salim Ali Bird Sanctuary. And as soon as you get off the ferry, you will see the entrance to the sanctuary. I think the ticket is not very expensive if you are into bird watching, or if you just want to, get the feel of a dense forest and you don't want to get too far away from the city, or you don't want to go to the Mahabir Sanctuary or all the other sanctuaries which are in Goa, then this is a
Mm-hmm.
place for you. And again, if you go in the off season, you might not spot too many birds. You will only find the birds which are like native to Goa. But
Right.
when you go during the migratory season, it's just a very pleasant, nice, serene walk. And
Yeah.
there's a proper pathway. It's like 920 meters nature trail. Like
Mm-hmm.
right in the, it takes you right in the middle of the mangroves, right? And you need to be very, attentive about the flora and fauna around there. So you might find a, small crab or a mud
Mm-hmm.
skipper, and if you do the entire trail, you go on the other end, you might also find lots of herons and kites and all sorts of birds.
Yeah.
So yeah, and there are a few watchtowers as well over there. So if you climb up there, you can get a nice panoramic view of Old Goa and the Ponte Lenares or the ferry point on the other side. So yeah,
Yeah.
Salim Ali Bird Sanctuary is something, if you have that much time and if you are into bird watching, nature trails, it's definitely something that one should do. I used to go there almost every 3 4 months because it was so peaceful.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Definitely. Yeah, Salim Ali, our own Birdman, right? Named after him.
right.
And yeah, that nature trail that Stuti just spoke about is a brilliant option as well, just exploring this by yourself. But I believe there's also an option of getting guides, right? If you want to get into the specifics in terms of the birds, the different birds, and the other species that are in the sanctuary itself. So you might want to the services of a guide. We'll definitely make sure to link that video of the nature trail that Stuti has done, covering of the Salim Ali Bird Sanctuary as well. I also believe there's a few crocodiles in the sanctuary, so watch out. Maybe you will get lucky, or watch out for them. You might find them in the vicinity too. Those are some of the things. But probably one of the primary points of interest on the island, right? The Salim Ali Bird Sanctuary. It is one of the key parts of the island of Chorao, right, Suti?
Yeah. And the trail which I'm talking about, you won't find any crocodiles over there. And if you
Mm-hmm.
really want to see crocodiles, then I would suggest that you hire a local fisherman. There are people who do these guided, canoe tours. There are
Mm-hmm.
tour operators, local tour operators, who know way more than I do, actually. You'll be getting to know Goa in more detail, first of all, and second, you'll be helping the economy, which is the need of the hour right now.
Oh yes, thank you for calling that out. And yeah, like you said, there's supposed to be over 400 species of local and migratory birds that are a part of this sanctuary, depending on the season, of course. But definitely make sure to visit this. And a good time would be early in the morning. so that you can catch or get the most out of this trip to this part of the island. Now, after spending some time at Chorao, I'm sorry, the Salim Ali Bird Sanctuary, where next would you suggest we head out and spend our time at?
Okay, so as soon as you get out of the sanctuary, it's right at the ferry point only. And if you are on a scooty or on a car, you just drive straight into the village. There are a lot of interesting temples and churches scattered all around the island. And because it was one of the first places conquered or taken over by Portuguese when the Portuguese conquest started. So
Yep.
it has a lot of interesting history, a lot of structures which are like an amalgamation of both the chapters of the history. You will find a
Right.
temple which was probably destroyed at some point of time. You will find a church which was built on the foundation of something else. So there are lots of interesting structures all across Chorao, and the first place which we'll cover or which you will encounter is the Devaki Krishna temple.
Okay.
So there are only two such temples in Goa, like Devaki Krishna. Devaki was Krishna's mother, and there are only two such temples in India actually, Devaki Krishna temples, and both of them are in Goa.
Okay. Interesting.
So one is in Chorao Island. That's the one. So as soon as you enter the village, you'll find a nice, vibrant temple. So that is Devi Krishna temple, and there is another one in Marshall. And again, there are so many structures you won't be able to cover everything in one go. And especially if you are trying to cover the island, I would rest of the island apart from Salim Ali, I would suggest that you at least make a list of items that you want to cover and give it a good amount of time, uh,
Right.
at least a day, so that you don't just cover, tick off those items from your list, but you also get to see the nice houses and lanes and everything. So
Right.
so in between these temples and churches, there are lots of interesting houses. They might not have a lot of history, but again, these are interesting structures to look at. Most of the time we call these Portuguese houses, but these are actually not Portuguese houses. There's in Goa, at least, there is no such thing as Portuguese houses. They are houses which are built during Portuguese times,
Right.
and the architecture is very much Goan. You will see Portuguese influences here and there, but architecture is, it's mostly Goan only
Yep.
because of the weather and everything. So you'll find all these very nice, pretty houses along the way. And once we are done with the temple, you just again there are no straight paths that okay, after this point you can cover that only. So there are two, three main attractions which you can kind of include in your itinerary while covering Chorao. Okay, so after the Devaki Krishna temple, you can go to the Our Lady of the Grace Church. It's a Roman Catholic church built in 1551,
Right.
and it was constructed around the same time when the Portuguese occupation of Goa started. And Chorao, in fact, like I told you earlier, it was the first area which was conquered or captured by Portuguese, and the Christianization
Right.
started, right? They set up their base here. Then this church was built here. It's a quite modest, it's not a very grand structure, but it is historically important, right? And Chorao was where Portuguese noblemen, when they came here, they liked the place so much they built their houses here, and then people also started calling it Ihlas dos Fidalgos. Fidalgos means noblemen, so it was known
Right.
as Islands of Noblemen. So that's how Chorao got its name back in that time.
Yeah, something very interesting about that also, right? Also, interesting fact that you called out that Devaki Krishna, right? Basically dedicated to Krishna and his birth mother. Those are the only two in India, not just in Goa.
Yeah.
Interesting one. And also, while I was looking up, I found that Chodan, I think, right, is an alternative name. It's of Konkani origin, and like the legend behind that also was that it's named or it means jewels, right? And
Yeah,
the background was that this is basically the island was formed out of the jewels thrown by Yashodha, Lord Krishna's mother, in the sea.
right.
Right, that's also another legend. So there seems to be that connection with Lord Krishna to Chorao, really from back in time, right? So
Right,
that's
right.
also an interesting thing that I came across. And thank you for calling out the Our Lady of Grace Church as well. I mean, you rightly called out that we very loosely always refer to houses as the Portuguese architecture and all of that. Might not necessarily be the case. It's more Goan, right? Like you said, it's
Right.
a mix of both Hindu as well as the Portuguese influences on it. But the churches you find are probably, you could say, are closer to Portuguese architecture or the influence, right? Because they are similar in terms of the architecture they come across as well. Some of the other Portuguese churches in, say, example, Kochi also have a very similar
Mm-hmm.
architecture. So that way, I think the similarity is more there than the homes itself. Homes have also the typical, what we'd say, the coastal architecture, right? Sloped roof with clay tiles and all of that. That's also
Right.
very common in the area. So that's what I felt. But yeah, tell us a little bit more about the churches. Did you visit any other churches as well besides the Our Lady of Grace Church?
Okay, so apart from that, the two main churches, the other two churches which you might come across if when you're roaming around is Chapel of Our Lady of Health. It is again a Roman Catholic structure dating back to early 1700s, I guess. And
Okay.
the other one is Saint Bartholomew's Church, again another Roman Catholic structure built in 1569. So around the same time when the whole Portuguese colonization was happening, most of these churches were built during that time only. Yeah. So these two other major churches, basically, again, there are different comunidades or communities within the island. So these church cater to that particular comunidad or community. So these three are major churches of Chorao.
Okay.
But apart from these three, my favorite place is Christ the King statue. Uh,
Okay.
it's it's quite a difficult place to go to and very difficult to look for. At least it was for me. And it's actually the highest point in Chorao. So if you manage to go there, it's a nice Christ the King statue on the hillock, and it has. If you want to see the 360-degree view of entire Chorao Island, that is the place you need to go. Just sit there, relax. Don't litter. It's a
Yeah.
holy place. So just
Even
go
otherwise, I
there.
would say,
Yeah.
because that's one of our bad habits that we take every place for granted, right? Religious or not, littering seems almost like a birthright to us. So yeah, please don't do that, especially on especially at places like these that are still pristine and are pretty much not very commercial, right? So you don't really have an infrastructure to take care in terms of coming and cleaning up, etc. It's mostly managed by the locals in the village, people of the village. So yeah, definitely take care about that. And probably like a good point to like end your day also would be the Christ the King statue, right? Given
Right.
that you're saying it's like a very strategic and a vantage point, you get a good 360-degree view. And when it's cooler later during the day, I think it might be a good point to just end your day there and absorb in all of the beauty of the place. Yeah. So
Yep.
thanks so much for calling that out. And one of the interesting things, and again, thanks to Wikipedia, this is just reading it from there. It's just that the cheese of Chorao also apparently is or used to be very popular, and probably just ties back to the connection of this place, Chorao being also known as the land of noblemen, right, or the island of noblemen, like you said. A lot of these Portuguese really liked and appreciated the cheese, and the cheese of this place also used to be very popular until recently, right? That's another interesting thing I saw as well. I want to just call that out quickly. But after this, next point in terms of island hopping, if I may call that, are we moving to Divar now? Is that what you said, Suti?
Yes. So next place which we'll be covering is Divar Island. It's not really that lesser known anymore. It's
Sure.
it's kind of becoming a bit of a mainstream place. Here, like when you were asking about Chorao, you were asking about homestays and places to stay. Here you will find a lot of options.
Okay.
Divar, again, it's very well connected through ferry, but there are two ways by which you can access this island. One is from Ribandar, the same road that you took for the Chorao ferry terminal. Keep driving along on the same road, and you can take a ferry from there on the Ribandar Ponte de Linaras road. And the another way is after crossing all the old Goa monuments near the Saint Cajetan Church, there is that Viceroy's Arch. So there also there is another ferry point. So from there also you can access the island. The interesting thing about Divar Island is that as soon as you get off the ferry from both the points, for around 2.5 kilometers from the Ribandar side, or for around less than 2 kilometers from the old Goa side, you won't find any house, any shop, or anything. It's just paddy fields, marshes, and no no sign of human beings whatsoever. And
Right.
after around 2 kilometers, you start seeing some houses, and you can see the church from a distance. But yeah, that whole stretch of road from the ferry point till the village starts is it's really nice, and especially if you are into cycling, if you want to do a nice cycle ride through the village, that is a very nice road to go for cycling. And I think there are some people, some tour operators who do cycling tours through Divar. That is something which I find really interesting. That for the 2 kilometers stretch, you won't find anything. Just keep driving slowly, slowly, and then after 2 kilometers, you find some sign of civilization.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, as you rightly mentioned at the beginning, right? It's yeah, on especially on Instagram and the influencer bandwagon, it's already there, right? Devar
Yeah.
Islands has already hit that, and yeah, cycling in Devar Island seems to be a thing as well. If you'd like to spend time doing that, and now in
Yeah.
terms of just going around and seeing places on Devar Island, was there any stopovers you made, Stuti, while going around?
Yeah, so the first stop that you can make is Our Lady of Piety Church. Uh, and it's also at a quite high point. So once you get to the church, you can actually see again a nice, very panoramic view of Chorao Island on the other side. And in fact, I forgot to say this during the Chorao section that there is a point in Chorao, like if you are able to find that, there is a small jetty, very dilapidated jetty. If you can find that jetty point, you can actually see Divar Island Church from that jetty point. So that is also a
Okay.
nice spot to just just see. Okay, there is Divar Island and here is Chorao, and from the church you can see Chorao and the river. Nice place to just relax and just enjoy the view basically.
Okay. Yeah, wonderful. And
Yeah.
this is the Our Lady of Piety Church, you said, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Awesome. So, any other churches? Because another one that I came across, I don't know if you had a chance to stop over here, was Sao Matias Church. I
Yeah,
think even that one is very. I mean, of the churches I saw, the different churches I saw, this one was kind of a little different with its hues of blue. It was really beautiful.
yeah. So I went there long time back, but I was not able to document it in the video. But again, if you want to include it, because I think it's on the other side of the island basically,
I see.
right? It's
Okay.
in the Malar area, right?
Right.
So if you want to go on a like nice long drive, you do the Our Lady of the Piety Church, and then you can do this nice drive towards Saint Matthias Church as well. It's also quite as old as the churches in Chorao. So yeah, it's again a nice drive and a nice church to just relax.
Yeah, definitely. And what about, did you find any, like, did you make stops at any temples as well? Because I know we talk about the Christianization and everything, but there does still remain quite a few important points of significance, like temples also, right?
Yeah, so there is another place which I want to talk about was the
Mm-hmm.
Porne Teerth Tali. Tali means
Right.
lake or a step well. So
Sure.
apparently, the Saptkoteshwar, the original Saptkoteshwar temple, I think it's now at some other place. It was situated here, and
Yeah.
during the whole conquest, these temples were destroyed, and the deities were moved from one place to another by the local people, so that the at least if they can't save the temple, then at least they can save the main deity. So there is a place called Porne Teerth Tali.
Yeah.
It's a step well made out of laterite stone. I think
Mm-hmm.
you might have seen that very rough red stone,
Yep.
very typical of Goa, which is used in Goan houses. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a huge pond kind of thing, and then it's surrounded by these laterite walls, which seems like it's not a like something which has been put there. It was a natural rock formation, and then there are small niches carved into those stones. Apparently, there are 108 niches like that, and
Okay.
the old temple from the Kalamba times used to be there.
Right.
So there is no temple anymore, but again, it's a nice place, and if you go there during monsoon, the pond actually gets covered with these. I can't recall the name of the plant. It's like uh, kind of water cabbage kind of thing. It just gets covered by that, and it just
Okay.
looks spectacular. And again, it's not very popular because it's very, it's in the very interiors of the village. So whenever somebody is exploring Divar, they just do all these two, three churches and goes to the colorful streets
Yeah.
because it's a little off from the center. People
Okay.
usually ignore that, and again, depending on people's interest, they might not like it because it's just a stone
Yeah.
wall, it's just a lake, and people who have actually kind of an interest in or maybe who find all these ruins fascinating, this is
Sure.
definitely a nice place to go to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because again, like I said, we mostly associate it to the Portuguese and the time after that, right? The colonization and everything. But a lot of it existed even before that. It's just that a lot of the structures are in ruins now. That way, I found this structure very interesting as well. And when we say stepwell, again, this is not stepwells in Delhi or Rajasthan or somewhere else, right? It's not that huge. It's a fairly smaller structure, and I believe Saptakoteshwar was the patron deity of the Kadambas, basically, right?
Yes,
That's
yes.
why it was. And the new temple, like I said, after the initial structure was, or when they tried to destroy it, it was shifted to Naroa in Baikolim is what I
Yes,
read.
Narwa,
So
yes.
that's where, yeah. So that's okay. Yeah, I'm sorry if I'm butchering the pronunciations, but that's where the temple is and the idol has been transferred to. But this place is also very unique, right? Unlike rest of the say churches or the temples we have talked about so far. So that way, definitely do make it a point to check it out if you have the time for it. Cool. Thanks so much for calling that out as well. Any other points of interest that you covered off while you're on Divar? Yeah.
No, not a place, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a festival which was actually the first ever Goan festival which I attended. Like
Mm-hmm.
I moved to Goa in I think July or August 2015, and this festival was taking place at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it's called
Yeah.
Bondera Festival, right? It's spelled Bonderam, but the M is silent. So it's
Mm-hmm.
basically a festival of flags. It happens in August, I think fourth Saturday of August, and
Right.
it has a very interesting story. And if somebody is planning their trip around that time of the year, especially not this year, maybe next year when it's safe to travel,
Yeah.
try to experience this festival. It's just as grand as the carnival. And the story behind the festival is that back in again Portuguese times, there were different communities and there were disputes that this area is mine, this comunidad is mine, and people used to fight over those, occupation of those areas.
Right.
So what Portuguese people did was they demarcated those areas by using flags, and
Mm-hmm.
flags in Portuguese is pronounced as bandera,
I
right?
see. Uh-huh.
And so bandera is like the corrupted version of the term bandera, and now it's a full-fledged festival. There is a fair which happens. There are large floats from all across Goa, which just roam around. Which cover all the streets of Divar. So that is something which, if possible, or whenever it happens, I'm not sure if it's happening this year. But it is something which, apart from carnival, you should definitely experience. Uh, yeah, it's a very interesting, very nice, very full of life festival, and yeah, I think
Yeah.
apart from carnival, try to experience, try to explore some other festivals as well. Yeah.
Yeah, no, Goa does have a few unique festivals, right? Even Diwali is a little different in
Yes.
Goa, like how it's celebrated and everything. So it's good to know about Bundera as well. And the backstory is also very interesting, right? The
Yeah.
story about how the name comes and all of that. So thank you for calling that out. A couple of other things also I saw in terms of festivals. I don't know if you came across this, was Potekar, or again, pronunciation wise, I don't know how exactly it is pronounced, but it's very similar to Halloween, is what I understand. People wear
Yep.
masks and
Mhm.
yeah, go around the localities. So, an interesting thing, even I never knew that we had anything similar to Halloween in India and in Goa, right? So, that was good to know as well. A lot of these little things that go on in villages, sometimes in certain parts of the country, you never get exposed to as much. So it's good to actually find out about all of these hidden gems, if I may use that cliched term and call that, right?
Yeah,
So,
but
yeah.
the good thing about Goa and actually Goans is that they love to celebrate everything. Like uh, there when if you are living in Goa, there is a festival almost every month, and especially during the from the August till March, there is one festival after the other. So it's like you are in a festive mood most of
Yeah.
the time, and they celebrate everything, and
Yeah.
that's why they're so happy all the time. That's why the people over there are so chill, because they're always celebrating something or the other.
Yeah, it's definitely a great attitude towards life and life in general, right? Just be
Yeah,
chill and enjoy life, and that
yeah,
actually shows in the attitude of the Goans and the culture of the place as well a lot. So wonderful, good to know about that. A couple of other interesting things. Again, I won't drag on too much about it, but I thought I'll just call it out.
yeah.
Um, Urak, or I don't know, it's probably the pronunciation Urak. It's a type of a local arak or feni, right?
Right.
Type of feni apparently is very popular in the region as well on Devar. That's something you might want to try out. Again, make sure you know some local when you try these things out, not just by yourself, but that's apparently very, very popular. And a lot of the bits and pieces from the movie Finding Fanny, right? Deepika and Arjun Kapoor, I think. That was also shot here in Divar Island, is what I understand. So just a little bit of
Yeah.
trivia to throw to the mix while we're covering off Divar. Any other points you'd like to touch upon before we move to the next island or next point of interest? Stuti?
I think we've covered almost everything. Again, if I, give too much details, there will be nothing left for your listeners to explore. Keep an open mind, be respectful, and these are just a few pointers to help you explore
Yeah.
the place in its truest, rawest form. But
Yep.
yeah, so
Yeah, no, definitely. If you can take anything away from our conversation, it's like just take your bike or bicycle or whatever your mode of transportation is and go around the streets and alleys of these villages, just looking at the beautiful houses, right? If nothing, if you don't have time to go visit these points of interest we're calling out, just go around, right? That's an experience in itself, just
yeah.
watching and absorbing the beautiful neighborhoods. And these are not touristy places, so you'll not find like a lot of rush or traffic and things like that. So just soak it all in and enjoy the quiet and the calm of the place. Let's take a quick commercial break here, and we'll be right back on the other side. And we're back talking to Stuti Bhadauria about her exploits around the islands of Goa. So, Stuti, let's jump on to the last stop or the last island on our trip or on the episode today, right? It's the Saint Estevam Island. So, why don't you tell us a little bit more about that, both from getting their perspective as well as the important things of interest there?
So, Sant Estevam or Santo Estevao Island is another island on the Mandovi River. But there are two ways to reach there. One is the shorter one is the longer one. The shorter one is through Old Goa again. You cross Old Goa. There is a place called Tolto Dhauji. So you can take a ferry from there. Now, I'm really not sure. I've read a few articles that the road which connects Dauji, Tolto, and the old Goa one, it was apparently part of the old Goa walled city, which was built during the again Portuguese conquest times, and there is a small portion of wall still left there. So I would suggest that you take this route rather than the other route, which is connected by a bridge, but it's a longer one.
Okay.
From this road, you can take the ferry, which is actually the smallest ferry ride of Goa.
Yeah, the ferry crossing, right? Basically, yeah.
Yeah, it's like 1 or 2 minutes. So it hardly takes that long to reach the island. And the reason is, someone might think that why did they not make a bridge over there? Like that would have been so convenient, right? But again, this whole area of Divar, Chorao, and Sant Estevam, it's a very fragile ecosystem. There are lots of mangroves over there. Birds have their homes, and there are crocodiles as well, even in Sant Estevam. So locals, especially Goans, they are, in this sense, they are very protective of their nature and ecosystem. So apparently, in I think 2017, 2018, there was a proposal to make a bridge over there, but people protested, and finally, they did not make a bridge over there, but they made it somewhere else, which was not that ecologically sensitive. And thankfully, we have because of that, we have the smallest ferry ride to Sant Estevam.
Yeah, it's so small that apparently you can talk to the person on the other side. Is what I hear.
It's very small. Like I was also surprised that why does it even exist? I had the same question that they could have easily made a bridge. Then I understood, that doesn't make sense. It's a very fragile ecosystem. We need to protect it. We don't need to ruin everything with bridges and roads and technology. Let it be.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
So after that, actually, Sant Estevam again is divided into smaller islands. And again, it's a very big place. So it's better that you have your own car, your own scooty or vehicle. The first section or the first place that you can start from is Tolto. It's it's a small island. A stream runs through it, so it's not like a island in the sense that Chorao is an island or the Divar is an island, but it's a small, separate place. And there is a church over there. It's called Our Lady of Boaventura. It's the oldest chapel of the village.
Okay.
And again, I think the family which lives next door is taking care of the church. And when I went there, again, like I said, people are very protective about their surroundings and nature. So when I went there, they saw me recording, and they saw me with the camera and all. So they were quite skeptical. And then I told them that this is what I do. I make these kind of videos, and they were very happy. We are documenting this because what happens is usually people come and they do these surveys. They want to make apartments here. We don't like that. So people are very protective about their land, but at the same time they're not very hostile. So if you go there, if you find a person who's roaming around, have a nice chit chat with them. They will invite you into their house. They will show you around, and they will introduce you with their family like. You are somebody who they already know, so they are friendly. They are very friendly, but again, they are a little bit protective. So Tolto Chapel is, it's the oldest one in the village. Again, fairly simple structure, but important because of how old it is. Right. So that is the first place that you can do. And if the local people are nice enough with you, they can take you on a nice hike through the jungle, which is next to the chapel, and show you some spots that you can go there and there. They will share all those secrets with you, but only if you are you are going there with good intentions.
Awesome. And any other churches as well apart from the Tolto Chapel,
Yeah,
Stuti?
so the biggest one is Saint Estevam.
Right.
Because the island is called St. Estevam, which is named after Saint Stephen.
Yep.
There's obviously a church called St. Estevam or the Saint Stephen's Church, and it's actually quite a grand structure. It's, I think, one of the biggest churches in Goa. Yeah, and the interesting thing that I, noticed about the church is that as soon as you enter the village or on the main road, you can actually see the church from almost everywhere because it's at a height. So
Yep.
it's dome, the round dome is visible from everywhere. So it's like the central point of the island. It's
Right.
visible for everywhere, and all around it there are like these khazans. These I don't know if you are familiar with the khazan system. These are like the reclaimed marshes which are used for farming and all. So the whole area is like there are small water bodies, the khazans, and people use it for farming, for fishing, and
I
stuff
see.
like
Okay.
that. So if you're driving on the main road, you can see the church at a distance, and then these marshes and then water bodies are all around. So again, it's a nice serene ride. Uh, yeah. The other church, it's not a church actually. It's a Christ the King statue next to the Saint Esteban fort. People call it fort, but it's technically not as grand as a fort, because when we talk about forts, we have the picture of a red fort or a Agra fort, those kind of
Yeah.
grand structures in mind. But it's fort in the sense that it was an outpost at a hillock with a room and everything, and you can see the Mapsa River on the other side and Mandvi River on the other side. So for the defensive purposes, that fort was built over there. And there is a small quarter. People, maybe apparently whoever was posted there, they used to stay. But it's technically not a fort. It's kind of a outpost.
Yeah, even compared to say forts in Goa, this one is much smaller, right? It's just
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, like you said, more like an outpost to keep an eye out, given its strategic location as well.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And this one, the statue you're speaking of is also called the Christ the King statue.
Yeah, so that was built to there around in 1920s, I guess. Fairly new structure, not as old as the other, churches and the fort itself.
Okay.
But like uh, all the people from the area, they just every evening, especially during the sunset time, people just gather over there. They do their evening walks and just chill over there, and then the local people, they've also made a pathway of I think 14, 15 crosses, so it goes all the way
Yeah,
into the village
14 holy
also.
crosses. Yeah.
Yeah. So 14 holy crosses, that is again a new thing. It's not a very old structure, but those crosses have been made, and that whole walk downhill is also very interesting.
Yeah, so basically, all of this, right? The Saint Estevam Fort, the Christ the King statue, and this pathway of the 14 holy crosses, all of this are in the vicinity, right? They're around the
Yeah,
fort,
yeah,
basically. Yeah.
yeah.
So awesome. So thanks for calling that out. And yeah, quickly calling out the St. Stephen's Church, right? Like you said, the biggest in the region. And I see that even though the original structure was pretty old, right? It was, I think, built back in the day, right? When the Jesuits initially came here. But since then, it has been kind of toned down a couple of times. One during the Maratha campaigns, and then rebuilt as well, right? So the structure we see is fairly new in that sense.
Yeah, so
Right.
that's the story with like almost every, not almost every, but most of the temples
Yeah.
and churches over there. Whenever somebody was trying to capture a place, they used to, tear
Yeah.
down the previous structure and then make their own thing, and then people used to build it back again. So it's like a recurring thing that people destroy it
Yeah.
and then people again rebuild it.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, one of the very important and main structures of the region, like you said, you can see it from any point of the
Yeah,
village as well as you approach it. Given that it's so huge, right, and named after, I mean, even the island is named after Saint Stephen, Stephens,
yeah.
basically, right? So that's an important call out. A couple other interesting things that I stumbled upon when I was looking up Saint Estevam was. It was also known previously as Green Island or Isla Verde, apparently, and was known for growing of vegetables and lady's fingers, the okra,
Yeah.
apparently. So that's also very popular. Like Saint Esteban was very popular for that, and yeah, it's been popularly known as the Isle of Vegetables. I think just an interesting tidbit to call out with regards to Saint Estevam as well. Now, while moving around the area, right, moving around the village itself, Stuti,
Mhm.
any like peculiar, say, with respect to the streets or the houses or the structures, bridges, etc., anything that you'd like to call out?
Again, the main thing which I think people will notice, not just in Sant Estevam, but in Chorao and Divar also. I think I specified that earlier as well, that Khazan system, and it is
Okay.
something which you will find only in Goa. Yeah, while you're walking around, you'll find these like large portions of lands which have been, enclosed by pathways or bunds. These are actually community managed, agriculture fields or ecosystems, and that's only found in Goa. And especially in Sant Estevam, you will find these sluice gates which control the flow of the water like almost everywhere, because
Right.
if you look at the map, you'll see that there are like houses are like very close together, but most of these houses are surrounded by these water bodies and marshes, so these sluice gates are basically used for controlling the water flow, because most of the water is not good for farming, right?
Right.
Right,
Saline
so
and
the
everything. Yeah.
yeah, so that they control the flow of the water, and then that flow of that water is used for irrigating other fields in the area. So that is something like one can actually explore and get more in-depth knowledge into.
Yeah, wonderful. No, thank you for calling that out, especially the Kazan system, right? Like you said, that and even the sluice gates and bunds, right? That's also
Yeah,
very ingenious of the people. Like the local communities actually have a big hand to play in that.
yeah.
And yeah, somebody looking to get deeper into it, it's actually really enlightening to learn a lot about how a lot of this has been community managed and managed by the locals. Yeah,
Yep.
I need not speak to Stu's expertise with the camera and with the equipment. We'll definitely provide a link to our YouTube. You can check it out. Some really great shots, not just using things like the GoPro, but also drone shots and stuff like that. Just the whole experience, it enhances that significantly watching your videos and enjoying the vibes of these different islands, right? Any final thoughts, Stuti, as we start to wrap this up?
Yeah, so these are the main three islands. There are obviously, other islands which one can explore. There is a place called Vanusim. It's actually spelled Vanxim, but
Yeah.
it's pronounced Vanusim, and it can be accessed from Divar. It's a very small island, and not many houses there, like 10, 20 houses are there, and it's a very small, fairly small island. So if you want to go beyond Divar, that is something which you can explore. Then there is Sao Jacinto, which is more towards the southern side of Goa. That is something, Sao Jacinto is something which you can explore. Then there is another island which is actually quite far away from Goa. It's not anywhere close to Panjim. It's in south. It's called Grand Island. There are tour operators who do, boat tours to that island. They won't let you get on the island, but you can get pretty close. You can do swimming and scuba diving and all. So that is also something that you can try out.
Yeah, there's a lot of islands, but Stuti did call out a few of the significant ones that you can go on and explore. Just be sure to be respectful. It's a small, these are smaller places, not necessarily heavy on tourist infrastructure, but maintained by locals in the local communities there. So just be respectful of that and don't litter, like Stuti said as well. But thank you so much, Stuti. We'll make sure to include links to all of your social media channels, including your YouTube and website as well. But it's been an absolute pleasure and delight for us to explore Goa with you.
Thank you so much, and I hope whoever listens to this, they get to see or get to know a different kind of Goa, which I have experienced in the last 5-6 years. And if you plan a trip to Goa, and maybe my experience helps you in explore Goa in a different way.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thanks so much, Stuti.
All right, thank you.
That was yet another great episode on the Musafir Stories. Make sure to show us some love by sharing the podcast with your friends and family. We are on Instagram and Twitter at Musafir Stories. If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM podcast app or the website. Follow us on our social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram.